In the south, our soldiers get 116 downed drones against 34 hits. This was announced by the head of the Joint Coordination Press Center of the Defense Forces of Southern Ukraine, Natalia Gumanyuk, on the air of the national telethon United News. It's just as hot in the south. Despite the fact that it's already autumn, but it's hot at the front. And hotly we do in most cases to the enemy, while they are still trying to attack us. Including with the use of kamikaze drones, 6 of which we destroyed this night in the Mykolaiv direction, Gumanyuk said. She added that Ukrainian soldiers are learning to shoot them down, and the results are quite convincing in this area of responsibility. We already have an achievement, 116 downed drones against 34 hits. In addition, these hits were not always effective. Often it was just a hit at the junction of water or in the coastline, that is, without damage. Therefore, that drone is not so terrible as it is drawn, Gumanyuk added. She also commented on a certain activity of the enemy's DRG in the southern direction. Sabotage and reconnaissance groups are rather attempts by the enemy to report to their military and political leadership that they are trying to do something. It happens that the DRG is trying to find out where to direct its efforts in order to inform about the readiness to surrender, Gumanyuk said. On Friday afternoon, Russian troops launched several missile strikes in Kharkiv. This was reported in Kharkiv. Mayor Ihor Terekhov has sent a telegram, Ukrinform reports. 4-foot arrivals in Kharkiv, Terekhov wrote, and a minute later, several more explosions. The sounds of explosions could be heard in different parts of the city. According to eyewitnesses in social networks, a fire broke out at the site of one of the blows. As a result of strikes on Kharkiv and its suburbs on October 14, according to preliminary information, no one was injured. This was announced on Facebook by the advisor to the head of the Kharkiv Regional Council, volunteer Natalia Popova. As reported by Ukrinform, after the Russian missile strike on October 13, some areas of Kharkiv experienced problems with electricity supply. Deputy head of the presidential office Kirill Tymoshenko spoke about the number of damaged infrastructure facilities as a result of Russian shelling. He made this information public at a briefing, an Ukrinform correspondent reports. According to Tymoshenko, in Nikolaevshkina, as of now, as a result of attacks, 4,790 private houses, 1,099 high-rise buildings, 1,788 objects of housing and communal services, 118 schools, 98 healthcare institutions, 54 administrative buildings, 20 institutions of higher education are damaged. Even in spite of sneaky attacks, it is possible to recover. In the region, 1,804 objects have already been restored, including high-rise buildings, private houses, as well as roads, housing and communal services, the deputy head of the OP added. According to him, 1,673 private houses, 242 high-rise buildings, 2,326 housing and utilities facilities, 97 cultural institutions, 77 schools, 38 healthcare institutions were destroyed in the Zaporozhye region. At the same time, as of today, 1,147 objects have been restored, and work continues. He also informed that 731 objects were destroyed in Sumy region. Currently, 1,024 objects have already been restored, 533 private houses, 161 high-rise buildings, 39 housing and utilities facilities, 16 administrative buildings. Tymoshenko assured that the presidential team, the government, parliament, the armed forces of Ukraine, Ukrainians, as well as international partners continue to hold the line. The police collected the wreckage of S-300 complexes at the site of night attacks on Kharkiv and opened criminal proceedings. This is reported in Telegram Communication Department of the Main Directorate of the National Police in the Kharkiv region, reports Ukrinform. The invaders launched a rocket attack on one of the city's districts in the evening of October 13. A hit to the road surface was recorded. 2 craters formed. There were no injuries. It was previously established that the attacks were carried out with S-300 missiles. The police conducted an inspection of the scene, seized fragments of ammunition, the report says. The pre-trial investigation began on the fact of violation of the laws and customs of war. The press service of the Kharkiv Regional Prosecutor's Office added that there are no military facilities in the affected area. As reported, on October 13, at about 2100 hours, Russian troops attacked the Kolodnogorsk district of Kharkiv. The armed forces of Ukraine have already liberated 1,620 settlements from Russian invaders. According to Ukrinform, this was stated at a briefing by the advisor to the head of the office of the President of Ukraine Kirill Tymoshenko. Today is an important holiday, the Day of Defenders and Defenders of Ukraine. Day of heroes who are respected by the whole country and whose exploits have been heard all over the world. I congratulate all those who defend Ukraine, and we remember all those who gave their lives for Ukraine. Thanks to you, 1,620 settlements have already been liberated from Russian invaders, Tymoshenko said. He stressed that the 233rd day of heroic confrontation between the people of Ukraine and Russia's insidious aggression is underway. The armed forces of Ukraine are heroically performing their assigned functions, and emergency, special and municipal services workers are working almost around the clock. The International Committee of the Red Cross, ICRC, has called for immediate access to all prisoners of war following criticism of their work by Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky. We share the frustration over the lack of access to all prisoners of war who are being held as part of the international armed conflict between Russia and Ukraine. Since February, we have been working to access and verify the conditions and treatment of prisoners of war and inform their families about their loved ones. We have been able to visit hundreds of prisoners of war, but there are thousands more that we have not been able to see, the statement said. The ICRC noted that its groups are ready to visit the Olanovo colony and any other place of detention of prisoners of war. However, in addition to providing access at a high level of government, this requires practical measures to be implemented on the ground. We cannot forcibly gain access to a place of detention or internment where we were not allowed, the statement reads. It is emphasized that all states have committed themselves to respect the Geneva Conventions. It is a legal obligation for the ICRC to grant access to prisoners of war. It also helps to preserve humanity in an international armed conflict that has caused immeasurable losses to countless families, the organization said. Our mission can only be achieved through coordinated efforts with the parties to the conflict. And we ask them and the international community to support the role assigned to us, the ICRC concluded. Earlier, President Zelensky criticized the work of the ICRC and called on the organization to make efforts to get into the concentration camp in Olanovka, where Russians are holding Ukrainian prisoners. I believe that the International Committee of the Red Cross is not a club with privileges, where they receive salaries and enjoy life. The Red Cross has obligations primarily of a moral nature. The Red Cross mandate must be fulfilled. It is necessary to do immediately what is quite logical for the Red Cross. There is a storage room. In fact, a concentration camp where prisoners are held. You need access to them, as it was stipulated. The Red Cross can do this. But you need to try to do it. Ukraine is ready to contribute to this, the head of state said. On the night of July 29, a powerful explosion occurred in the building where Ukrainian prisoners of war were being held on the territory of the former correctional colony No. 210 in the village of Olanovka in the temporarily occupied territory of the Donetsk region. According to the Russian side, about 50 Ukrainian defenders were killed, and more than 70 were seriously injured. On the territory of Olanovka there are Ukrainian military personnel who, under the guarantees of international organizations, left the surrounded Azovstal and Mariupol so that they could be exchanged in the future.